Hello and welcome to Speaking of Conflict, the podcast where we talk about mediation and intercultural communication. And today, Lisa brought us a very interesting topic, the subject of cultural dimensions.
Exactly.
Maybe you want to introduce us to some of that, because I think it's very, very interesting.
Yes. So last time when we had the episode about intercultural communication, I introduced the high and low context culture, which was from Edward T. Hall. And today we want to focus on Hofstede's cultural dimensions. He kind of was more focused on what are patterns that kind of can describe how people think about more broader values. So something like hierarchy, individuality, and success. Mm-hmm. And maybe I want to start with a question to you without that you have too much information. Is like, imagine you're in a workplace and like you are friendly in that workplace, everything is fine. Would you feel, let's say you're in a meeting, would you feel not brave enough, but would you feel like you could openly disagree with your boss in a meeting in front of everyone, or rather not? Like the context is there's no bad feeling between you or the boss. Generally, like, is it something you could do?
It's a safe space. I feel safe generally, right? So I think, so no one will now work with me again. I think I would speak up.
Yeah.
But I realized in my experience at work that not everyone does it. I think it's not very common. Mm-hmm. But I personally had very positive experience with speaking up. Mm-hmm. Not in a mean way, but if I see something is not going well and I feel like my boss doesn't know about it, I feel like I need to tell him. Yeah. So he has the option to react on it. Yeah. And I think the fear of being in a bad position or getting bad spotlight, negative effects by this, I think it doesn't really make sense, because I realize most of the people are happy, because especially the higher you are in the hierarchy, the less people exist who speak honestly to you.
Okay.
It's now we're getting probably a different direction.
No, I just want to stop you because you already said kind of all the things we can kind of decode in this. Okay. Because I asked, because of course it can be a personality influenced choice, right? Like, do you rather feel like you can speak up or not, and so on? But it's often also like a cultural expectations where you are actually. Can you do it? Did you grow up in an environment where it's more common that everyone can speak up, or only the higher ups, and so on?
Maybe it's also, I don't know, also part of how you got raised. Because, for example, in my family, it was common to discuss certain things, and I was also allowed to talk to my parents like with my own opinion, right? Yeah. But I think there are families where it's not common that you speak up to your parents and say, I think this is like this, or we should change this. And I guess you would transfer that experience into workplace, especially in the beginning when you start entering the workforce or to work.
Yeah. I mean, it's that kind of what we talked last time in my episode too. What is kind of culture, right? You have your family culture too. You can have your national culture and so on. And it all kind of influences you. And then on top, the personality, of course. I just asked this question because Hofstede created 4 cultural dimensions, which later turned into 6 from different researchers. But I want to introduce the study that he did, and from that he created this 4 dimensions. This is an old study. This is also why I will mention some criticism later. So this study is made between the 60s and 70s when he was working there at IBM, at the company that has like a lot of different locations worldwide. But the study is quite big. So what he did was analyze over 100,000 employee surveys.
All workforce from IBM.
Exactly, but worldwide.
Worldwide, yeah.
So he kind of looked, from the similar positions. Let's say you are a marketing manager in Germany, and then he picked position and asked someone, the marketing manager in China, and the same he did, and so on. So it's a really large scale study. And so what he did from there is try to figure out if from this behavior and what they kind of said, are there some national like cultural patterns that he can figure out through that. So now we can immediately have some criticism about it. A, that study is quite old. B, just because you have one company, even worldwide, can it represent like a diverse culture in each country, right? Like
yeah, and there are companies with different cultures within the company as well. That's something you could criticize, but still, like that's very impressive to have like.
Yeah, like so. I think it's okay to mention also because that study did a lot for intercultural communications later, especially more like in the workplace. And so he came up with the 4 cultural dimensions. And I asked you a little bit before regarding the boss and like in the situation. What do you think, what could be any of these 4 dimensions? So like the pattern he could try to figure out, like, is that the national behavior or not, like regarding the workplace? Do you have like any idea?
The 4 dimensions he found.
Yeah, you do not have to name all the 4, but maybe you have an idea what could be different in each country from every kind of behavioral category.
So I would say communication.
Yeah.
Also, maybe the way criticism reaches the boss, because I know that there are also there was a study in Japan where it was common that basically the secretary always asked the team, and then she got the information from the team and brought it to the boss. So the employees didn't have to speak up to the boss, but still had the chance to give their opinion. So knowing that, I would assume that there's also the way of collecting criticism or getting response from the team. That maybe that is a dimension. The 3rd dimension, what could I think of?
Do you remember like what else plays a role? For example, when I asked you with the could you open up in a meeting and speak to your boss?
How safe you feel.
Yeah, and what is the upper category? Not even how safe you feel? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Culture, the work culture.
Okay, shall I read off?
Yeah.
Okay. Imagine starting a new job in another country. Same role, same task, but everything feels different. Why is that? Let's dive into the cultural dimensions of Geert Hofstede, a framework designed to analyze and categorize cultural values across societies. Based on research within a multinational company, his work helps explain why employees around the world think, communicate, and make decisions in different ways. Let's explore 3 of these dimensions. First, power distance. This describes how organizations handle hierarchy and authority. In high power distance cultures, employees tend to expect clear directions from their managers, and decisions are made at the top. In low power distance cultures, employees are more likely to speak up, share ideas, and expect a more equal relationship with their manager. The second dimension is individualism versus collectivism. In individualistic cultures, employees focus on personal goals, take initiative, and highlight individual achievements. In collectivistic cultures, employees prioritize team harmony, support colleagues, and focus on group success. The third dimension is motivation towards achievement and success. In achievement-oriented cultures, employees are driven by performance, competition, and results. In contrast, in more relationship-oriented cultures, cooperation, well-being, and work-life balance play a bigger role. As an example, let's take Germany, Japan, and Mexico. Using the country comparison tool that is based on Hofstede's dimensions, we can see clear differences between these countries. Germany tends to have more equal workplace structures and strong individual responsibilities. Japan stands out with a strong focus on achievement and performance. And in Mexico, hierarchy and workplace relationships often play a more central role. These differences show how employees may approach the same situations in very different ways. At the same time, it is important to remember that Hofstede's model has its limits. It is based on research conducted decades ago within a single company, and no single study can fully represent the complexity of entire national cultures. So rather than seeing these dimensions as fixed truths, they should be understood as a useful framework, a starting point for understanding cultural differences in today's global workplace. So it's the power dynamics, the power distance, right? Are you actually, can someone who is below a boss is used to speak up to someone who is a higher up in that sense? Like kind of, the one is the safe space, but it's also kind of the safe space your environment gives you anyway, which is more common or not. So the power distance is literally like he found out there are some countries which have a high power distance, and that means like the hierarchy in itself is accepted. Like, you know, you have someone who is your boss, he will make the decisions, we accept this, we don't kind of question the authority. And that can be through the workplace, but as well as some different aspects of the culture itself, right? So it's kind of like, is it more common or not to speak up? Yeah. So this is also, I think, what you said before, that you learned that in your family as well, will be probably as well influenced a little bit through what is the general culture that we have. Of course, you can have families that are more patriarch or matriarch, and you kind of use that. Then there's one person who leads this and makes the decision, and it doesn't matter what your sister says or whatever. And the same like in the workplace, right? Like, is it always the manager, he has the last word, and when he or she making a decision, can I discuss afterwards or rather not?
Yeah.
So I think that at least kind of interesting. And the lower power distance is exactly the opposite. It's more like kind of equality is expected, and that you have more like an open communication and a more like participative form, right? Like you want to include your members of the team. You want to say, okay, Teresa, how you think about that? Or you might even ask your intern, you know, that's there for 2-3 months, but you want to kind of like discuss and get further.
Yeah.
So he found that. I brought you like 3 examples, maybe because this is already revealing too much, but I chose Germany, Japan, and Mexico. Maybe this is interesting too, maybe for you watching as well. So Geert Hofstede, he had a company once called Insight, and that later turned into the Culture Factor Group. They're now doing cultural analytics and advisory, and they have a tool on their website, which is kind of cool. It's called Country Comparison Tool, which is based on the dimensions that Geert Hofstede did. And you can literally enter any kind of country and see how in each dimensions they are categorized. So always keep in mind as well what we said. It's oversimplified. It's not giving you 100% idea about the people from that country, but it gives you a little hint. Mexico, for example, has a hierarchy, like a really high hierarchy is 81. I think it is, strong hierarchy.
So it means people respect hierarchy a lot. It's very important.
Exactly.
So it means you would rather question your boss. You would probably not question.
You would not question your boss.
Well, like it says here in Germany, 35.
Yeah.
So it's quite low. So you would probably more question.
Exactly. You would more also feel more like the safe space that you just mentioned before, and say like, okay, it's more of a participative decision making. I'm a member of the team. It's probably better for my boss that I voice my opinion.
Yeah.
He or she will like respect that and like that. And it's more in Germany, like the equality is more wanted in this kind of decision making. And then you have Japan, which is like moderate high with 54, which is like hierarchy is respected, but it's balanced with the group harmony, right? So you have like, and as the way I speak about it, of course, I'm just taking the information from this particular dimensions and the group. It's not like set in stone and everything.
I have a thought on that.
Yeah, please.
Just from personal experience, because I also have been to Japan and also in like a work field sphere.
Yeah.
And I feel in Japan there are many rules, like how you behave, how you eat. You should not like also all that. And in Germany, I feel like you have less rules on how to behave. There are some, but I feel like compared, there are just less. And maybe you can have basically a lot of participation with many rules, and you can have a lot of participation with less rules and where it's more freestyle. Maybe there are different kinds of participation, because also the example I brought from Japan, which is funny because now you also have Japan here.
Yeah.
It also shows that you have this the structure where you ask basically people what's your opinion?
Yeah.
But it's very structured.
Yeah.
It's not like in Germany where you have a meeting maybe and everyone just speaks up.
Yeah.
I feel like there's not really a structure, except like there's a meeting. If you want to have something to say, just say it. But the other is more like structured, like there's a structure in the company.
Maybe in the whole process of voicing the opinion or making a decision, or I mean, even I think that it was not from Japan, but I think you made the example before that like the one secretary or assistant collects the opinions of the team, but then she's the one voicing it to the boss. Yeah, like, you know, I think
but
that is a
process.
process.
Say maybe it's in the meeting. Maybe you just set an appointment with your boss and then you say it there. Maybe you pass down the hallway and say, "Oh, I see you. Actually, I want to tell you something." There's so many ways, and there's not like this one structured way. Yeah, and that's interesting that you can have basically the outcome of a lot of participation with different
ways.
Ways.
Yeah. And I think also always consider, doesn't matter if it's in the same nation, companies can handle it very differently, right? It's probably also depending, is your company very big? Is it small? Literally how nice is the boss you're having, or the team or the managers or whatever, right? Like it has different factors and everything just gives a tendency. But I think that's also interesting. Like you can have a whole group, but the process of how they're doing it can be very different. Yeah. So yeah, that's very interesting. But I think like it's really interesting to figure out like the whole power distance thing, right? Like, because it gives you a little bit of an idea of a framework when you enter certain places or like certain countries and so on, to give you, okay, maybe I should just not talk right away in a meeting and tell them that I don't like it, you know, like it can give you
like the last episode where I was talking about Korea was like, I said, how should I, you know? Yeah. It gives you a little help.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the second one, you already see it, is the dimension of individualism versus collectivism. So, I mean, it already says in the word, is focused on whether people see themselves as independent individuals or primarily as part or members of a group. Right? So, you looked at it already, maybe not, but what did you think about Germany?
Individual.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't looked it up.
Okay. But do you feel like it's fitting to you? Like, do you see that as well when you look at
Yeah. Actually, sometimes I'm annoyed at that. I see the advantages and so on, but if I see other cultures, I feel like helping each other out, thinking as a community, being together with your family. Also, like the family thing. I feel like in Germany, everyone wants to move out, wants to be free from parents quite early. And I feel like the value of community is, there is the shared living spaces and so they're all existing, right? So everyone has the need for community, but I feel like it's also, I sometimes see how beautiful it is in other countries where you are like, okay, it's not only about me. Yeah. Maybe I put myself a little bit back and I try to see what's best for everyone. Yeah. And that's also something beautiful, I think.
Yeah, I think we can, I need to add something politically here. Because so you have more like individualist countries more in the West, unfortunately. You see that's a lot. We have this, okay, how can you make your life better? What is good for you? You know, like how can you get better? How you can get your goals, your resources. And as it already saying, collectivism, you share your resources. Yeah. Right? It's probably not so much, okay, I earn that much money and then I keep also most of it. It's more like everyone is seen as like the same members of the group in the family structure, but then same probably as well in when you look at the workplace. Maybe you always just say, we did it and not I did that.
And that's also, I think, like a shift of mindset. Yeah. And probably there's not right or wrong, but I think in Western society, you think like you can achieve more by yourself. Like if you fight enough, if you go for it and so on. but sometimes you are even faster as a group.
Yeah.
Sometimes a group slows you down because you discuss so much.
Yeah, that's true.
That's also the other side, but sometimes it's easier as a group.
Yeah.
And it's more fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, I guess it depends on everything, but I would also say when we look very neutral on it, on these two words or the categories,
Yeah.
we would probably, everyone mostly would say maybe collectivism was like, or like, you know, is better than individualism because A, you're not alone, you have more shoulders to carry this on, and you have more like you can share literally everything, all the good things, right?
Yeah.
Like when we say, hey, we did that, and not just I did that,
Yeah.
or these resources
And
are
it
only
is
for me.
it is like that,
Yeah.
right? If like your boss creates something or makes a change, you could not have done this without the team.
Yeah, exactly. And to recognize it as well is like, I think, very important. So I think, yeah, we could, if you live in an individualistic country, like, let's try to be better and think about like the rest of us. So yeah, so what we just discussed, Germany has like 67 here in this schedule. It's from all the three, it's the most. So personal goals are basically focused on independence and so on. And Japan is mid-ranged again. It's like balance between individual and group harmony. And then Mexico is more collectivistic. It's like group obligations and loyalty is emphasized. So I guess
it's interesting, the combination of strong hierarchy and a lot of collectivism.
Yeah. And also what I read in there, what I thought it might be interesting, it's on another sheet I have, is it's more common, because we talked about high and low context, that high context people live in a collectivistic group.
Oh, interesting.
I think it would be nice to connect as well for you to have this in mind. But I mean, yeah, because I guess it's even if it's a group, maybe in that theory of him, you still maybe need someone who leads a little bit the group, even though it's the whole group. But it really depends on which part of culture you look in, right? Because you could have, I mean, for example, I guess the perspective of Mexico, even though probably some people say like men are very dominant or so, in every household is the mom who rules it, right? So like it's kind of interesting there too. Like I think everyone is afraid of their mom, like to don't get her upset or angry. And I mean, you could correct me,
but is the house?
Yeah, I think that's for sure. But like it's always interesting to connect certain things, right? I mean, they're not set in stone, but it's kind of like interesting to think, okay, yeah, the tendency is there. They're usually more collectivism, but then they might have a stronger hierarchy too. You could think about why is that?
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of different things connected. And the third one, maybe we dive into directly. It's a criticism, a big criticism to Geert Hofstede. Sorry on that one, but he named this back in the day masculinity versus femininity. And he was enhancing with that more like gender stereotypes. And this is why it got changed. I mean, think about the difference in the naming. Now it's called motivation toward achievement and success versus quality of life. Yeah, so I guess it was more seeing as like the dominant way was more the masculine way in kind of just forcing their goals no matter what. And women had more the tendency of, but then it's kind of the gender stereotype anyway, which was enhanced by this. So we will skip this. And it's basically what I already said is either you're more like very achievement orientated, or as well like the quality of life. And what do you think of Germany? Maybe we continue with this one.
Yes. Okay, it's hard because I would say Germany is achievement orientated, but in the same time, I feel like there's a backlash in Germany. I feel like especially younger generations are less motivated for achievements, but more for the quality of work-life balance.
Yes, exactly.
30
Yeah, or
so I feel
4
like
days week.
maybe 50 years ago it was achievement, and I feel like now it could be also quality of life orientated. But tell me the truth. What does get?
I think you kind of have a good opinion about this, because when we look at all these three, Germany has the lowest. So it's more focused on the well-being. So like the highest has actually Japan, which is 95. so very achievement orientated. And then like Mexico is a tiny little bit higher than Germany, but not much, which is a high achievement orientation.
Okay.
I mean, we are already moderate high.
Yes.
I guess
So
30 would be low.
66 to 69.
And it's like not extremely like at an extreme difference.
Very similar.
For example, we demand a lot of our employers, and usually you could criticize that too, but we still kind of get a lot compared to other countries, like
Support, you mean?
I mean support, or like that you can even change, like share your management position, do 2 part-time positions instead of 1 full-time. That could be also something, like all the different stuff. And so I guess like this gives a little overview. But what do you think? Like
the 4th dimension.
Well, we will get to this in the other one. I have 6 more, but
okay,
it's like,
so another
not 6 more, but like in general, it's like a little bit more. But I think these are the ones I think could be like the first ones you also kind of interact with.
Yeah.
So the power distance, I think it's good for people to know when they do like go abroad, enter a different team, and they're like, I don't know, if you're Dutch and you're very used to just, like not even using the like formal speak to your boss and just say your opinion right away, and then you go to Mexico, and then everyone is looking at you like, how dare you speak up, So I think that can give like a little bit of a framework to understand cultural differences. And but okay, I will name the other. Shall I name the other categories?
Yes, we have here.
Okay, so there's uncertainty avoidance. If you can understand something from it, it's long or short term orientation. So regarding the time, and indulgence versus restraint.
Oh, interesting.
So they're a little bit more abstract, I think, than the others. So
okay,
that
next episode. We are very curious.
But do you like what kind of stood out for you from these dimensions? Do you have like, was something like very new for you, or was it something that you encountered when you maybe worked like abroad or in a different country that fit to kind of these categories?
Like what for me is quite interesting is the success category, because I'm also questioning how to measure success, right? Because if you think of like for example, the turnover, the yearly amount of money we do in a country, you can look from it from a different perspective. Looking, for example, to Mexico and Germany, the import-export numbers, you could also measure, right, success from all those final numbers, but you can also from personal achievement. Do you study? How hard do you study?
Exactly.
So I would be curious to figure out a little bit more about that also. I think the hierarchy thing is very easy to grasp and good to, if you go, like you said, you go to a different country, you just look it up, you always have an idea, and then you kind of know how to navigate. Also in I don't know, if you go to a shared flat and you live with other people, for example, and you know, okay, how are we communicating? How are we discussing problems? Do we just speak up? Is there one person who collects everything and organizes? Like, if I know that, I would probably walk a little bit different.
Yeah, of course.
Through life then.
I mean, maybe with the success, maybe I can find a little bit more information as well for you to see how to measure this. I think when it's based on the employer service, it's more like how they did their job and what was important for them, right? So it's not like the nation's import experts things. It's more like a personal development. Like, do you I don't know, is it important for you to let's say finish your project on the day you wanted and stay 12 hours more, or if Monday is also okay and you can sleep? You know, a little bit like how you tackle this and what is kind of important for you, whatever the outcome is. I think like if it's gonna be fine if you do it Monday, but you still want to do it, you still want to achieve this, you know, kind of this drive. So, but I think that's a little bit more abstract than the other two, which you can a little bit feel a little bit more, right? Like even if it's individualism versus collectivism.
Yeah.
If you're just used to collectivism and then you have someone coming from individualism who's always like, yeah, but that's too much for me, or I did that work, and everyone else is speaking in the we form, and it's more
It's
like
also interesting, that with like companies, because like I think companies try to create this collectivism, right? To feel at home at your workplace, to have your workplace as friends and be close with them. Like, it's something companies try to create also and support. So that's
I think like because I guess the hierarchy is often like said as, even though collectivism can have hierarchy, I think the way a lot of companies try to do it is like create a safe space that everyone has a voice, then feel comfortable, right? Like maybe they're also not super clear how they're doing this, because you can have collectivism and the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right. So then it's kind of like, which way are you going, and how are you actually addressing this to employers? And of course, like it's very depending on the company you're in, right? Like on the whole atmosphere, because it's at the end of the day, it also depends on the people who work with you, and how the vibe, how they are, and if they don't give you a good vibe, but in general the company is telling you, oh great, we are collectivism, and you
and they don't live with it,
and then they don't live with us, then
let's say I will move to another country. I'm starting a new job.
And
from this episode, I can take 3 things. First, first I go to this tool and say, oh, let's get an idea of the general tendency of the country. And then I can check, how's the hierarchy, how individualistic or collective is it? And how achievement oriented or well-being oriented is the country. And then it can help me move within
I think most like the first 2, because the third one I feel a little bit it's
probably also changing by generations.
Exactly. And I think there was another criticism of the whole thing, is like, for Geert Hofstede in the categories, it looks like culture is set in stone and it will never change, right? You can have exactly this with the well-being and success change from generation to generation, because we deal with different subjects. What do we want out of life?
Individualism and collectivism will change slightly.
It's slower change.
But
I think like we should always remember that, right? It's culture is always in a constant development. Either to a fast degree, usually to a really slow degree, but it's never something that your grandma could say something about some people from a nation that is based on 50, 60 years ago, and you have a completely different view on it.
So that's also a takeaway. I think we will probably say that very often. For everyone who loves clear-cut answers and strategies,
we are not for you.
We will not give you that.
Because it's also dangerous. Always keep that in mind, right?
It will always develop. And it's just, if you have the knowledge, you can start moving and be aware and learn. But there's not this one strategy.
All right.
So check out the hierarchy in your company and let us know what hierarchy you're living. And is there maybe, even if you work in a multicultural team, it would be also interesting, what's your experience on that?
Maybe check that tool out and say like, oh, okay, I could see that. Or you can also put your criticism in that. As I said, like we can always criticize, it's important, but I would also be curious if it could give you an idea, like, or if you, even with your own country, you can check it out. I like this too.
Would be so interesting. Is like, do you feel, is that right? Or is that wrong? That would be also interesting.
So please let us know. And then we're gonna see each other in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.